Uh, yeah, so we're here to discuss Hitchcock's Rope. I assume everybody's seen it and maybe has some thoughts about it? Does anybody want to uh, start by giving us your thoughts about the film, or any reaction?
Do we want to record this, Victor?
What? What?
Uh, Do you want a recording?
Yes. Is that okay with you? Or are you there? Uh,
Yeah, I started the recording.
okay. Um, yeah. Does anybody want to react to the film? Or have any initial comments about did anybody not like the film or did like the film especially well? Mm. Oh, who else? Welcome Ashby. We got more people now. One, two, three, four, we got seven. Okay. All right. Um, okay. Hello. Are you there, Mike? Can you hear me? You're coming across very, I'm not sure, not very well. Okay.
Yeah, I tried to cut over to the on my phone.
Okay. Well, at the moment you're better. You're sounding better. For a second, you were.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, do you have any reactions to this film? You know something about Nietzsche, and there's some references to Nietzsche in the film. I know.
Um, actually, I do. Yeah, I'd like to take a second though to assemble my thoughts. So maybe somebody else could
Okay.
talk first.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about that. Um, the This is about as much about the film as it is about any philosophy, but the film seems to express or illustrate or certain ideas about morality, which some of the characters in the film explicitly refer to having been inspired by Nietzsche. I Most people who know a lot about Nietzsche don't think this is at all correct, but it is a popular conception of Nietzsche's philosophy of this will to power of basically rejecting traditional morality that the certain kinds of people like the Superman or the superior person somehow has a right to do things which normal people don't, such as in this case murder, and that of course is the whole theme of the film. We're talking about the philosophy, but you might want to also some of you might want to comment on the film as a piece of art and film and drama. That's okay too. But I did want to start by, or at some point, say something about the philosophical payload of the film. Um, those of you who know anything about Nietzsche may have heard there's a popular idea about Nietzsche that, that what I just said about Nietzsche was the correct interpretation of Nietzsche. But he did talk about some characters like what he called the Superman or the superior person. To me, I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from someone, just not a philosopher, but just a commentator on the film, on the specific film, and about the the reference to Nietzsche and how this person, I think they basically got it correct, how Nietzsche is misinterpreted in the film. I'm going to read what they had to say, and this is actually a link to this whole article from which these two paragraphs are taken in the description. It's in there. Uh, he writes, "Who is the Superman then? It's a complicated topic, and I'm no expert, but let me attempt to a 30-second summary for Nietzsche. We're talking about Nietzsche's idea of Superman. The Superman does, in fact, stand in opposition to traditional morality, but not because he is better. He must, because, as Nietzsche sees it, he must see. Uh, he's got. Uh, He sees traditional morality as not life affirming. Its purpose is judgment, and its goal is preparation for life beyond this, for an afterlife, and so forth. He's talking about traditional Christian morality. And as such, it ultimately devalues life in this world. It also has a way of dividing people into groups that cannot see the humanity in each other and are thus blind to the connections among all kinds of life. This dehumanization of others in turn justifies the imposition of horrific suffering on those who are unlike us, and we assume as a result are morally destitute and deserving of punishment. This He's talking about traditional morality, which separates people into the evildoers and the people who follow the rules. Uh, Nietzsche correctly concludes that it that it often has been traditional morality that has come to the defense of murder. The Superman is less likely to harm others precisely because he rejects arbitrary moral systems that can bend and warp to the whims of their adherents. The Superman's moral system is founded on what is universal, what is life affirming for the human race. He is not a free agent acting in isolation, but a leader trying to corral the forces of combined human endeavor, making us into a race that achieves its true potential in the embrace of the artist's conception, free inquiry, and compassion. What he's getting at there is, for example, traditional morality says, okay, thou shalt not kill. That's it, as though that was very well thought out. But in real traditional morality, everyday morality, people they take these interpretations, these rules as guidelines that they interpret, and they make all kinds of exceptions, and they're hypocritical about it. For example, many people think it's perfectly okay to kill in war. It's perfectly okay to kill in self-defense. Nietzsche would say whether or not it's okay to kill, it's something that the individual in that circumstances needs to gauge and take responsibility for, and not simply do what some rule has told them they should do or shouldn't do. For example, suppose a mother's child is in danger of serious danger. Someone's threatening to kill their child, and the mother happens to be armed and can do something to stop their killing of their innocent child. Should the mother, following the rule, thou shalt not kill, just let her child be killed? Or is it okay in that situation to kill the assailant, the person who's threatening her child, or to kill someone who's threatening you? Is self-defense always right, or is it always wrong? Nietzsche would say there's no rule about it. It depends on the person and the situation and what the human values that are at stake in that for that particular person in that situation. That's what he was railing against when he was railing against traditional morality. And so clearly, the essay goes on and on to talk about how the two characters in the film, the two main, Brandon and I think Philip, the two murderers, are they're not Nietzschean super. They're not illustrations of anything that Nietzsche had in mind. In fact, they're kind of they're one of them. Brandon is kind of he sees as Nietzsche would see as someone who has lost traditional morality and replaced it with nothing, and as such is what you get when you lose faith in traditional morality and you haven't taken responsibility as an individual for what you're doing. He's in fact the symptom of what happens when traditional morality fails to convince. The other character, Philip, is basically a weak character who at least sees the wrongness of what he's doing, but is reacting from fear instead of he really should have, if he really understood the situation, he should have turned himself in and not tried just give realize the wrongness of what he did, not because it was traditionally immoral, because it was just plain wrong. It was not life affirming. Anyway, that's Nietzsche's view is much more sophisticated and complex than the film would make made it out to be. I just wanted to say that up front, but the film itself. Anybody have any reactions to it or any? Any thoughts about it? Just go ahead
Well,
and.
I do. I've got a couple of comments. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a very interesting movie. I had seen it before quite a while ago, and this time I think I got more out of it. I think that yeah, I recognized the appearance of Nietzsche's morality, especially when they were sitting down. There was that older gent with the glasses. That was the father of the guy that was murdered.
Right,
So they were having a discussion, and Jimmy Stewart was, proposing his theory, but it was just like an armchair philosophical theory of, okay, yeah, so we can, it's fine to kill people of lower social stature or that aren't very smart, or it was something along those lines. But the main point I guess I wanted to make was that when the Brandon and Philip undertake this experimental murder, which they were uh, well, their motive was what? To me, they didn't really have a motive. It was just more like a frivolous, okay, let's try this. Like, okay, let's try skiing, or I don't know, let's try hiking or driving cross country or something like that. So they didn't seem to have any compelling reason to actually murder somebody that could, well, whatever reason they had would not translate into some kind of justification for murdering somebody. So, but um, so I wouldn't rank Brandon, and he was the ringleader. That Philip seemed like he just didn't have much of a spine, but at least in the end he kind of turned on Brandon. But I wouldn't rank Brandon as any kind of a Superman in the Nietzschean sense, because to me Brandon was more like a psychopath. He didn't really. Okay, I can see he was kind of copying Nietzsche's view of disregarding morality, but I don't think I don't regard him as any kind of a Superman. He just kind of a nut. He Brandon was a pretty bad guy. He just would manipulate people. He's murdering people. That's kind of the worst human being you can come up with, and so I wouldn't regard him as a Superman.
yeah,
Thank you. That
sure. Anybody else want to react? Just go ahead and speak up if you want. Um, any thoughts?
Sure.
Any,
Yeah,
I
I agree with what you said about Nietzsche. Yeah, that the film doesn't represent Nietzsche's view because Nietzsche was, I think, my interpretation, understanding Nietzsche view is that he is life affirming, and what he calls nihilism is the opposite of life affirming, and so any kind of morality, traditional morality that believes in a higher principle that um, justifies murder or anything else that doesn't meet up to that high standard of transcendental truth is a kind of nihilism because it's denying life, in order to affirm something higher, a principle. And I think Nietzsche represents a life affirming kind of idea. Um, and so these guys that committed the murder do not represent that point of view. They were just maybe distorting, misinterpreting Nietzsche's idea of a Superman in order to justify their the cultural, Western cultural um, racism and superiority you know of a colonial ideology that has justified itself by murdering people of what they consider subhumans all over the world, including the United States. The extermination of the native peoples in America and so forth, and going on to other countries to colonize other cultures and justify murdering those people in the name of Superman, superiority of the of one's race. And so they just represents the word, those two guys just represent the worst of thinking of a kind of Western, traditional culture that has pervaded and went around the world to, in the name of imperialism to justify murder.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Are you thanks, James. Thanks. Anna, were you going to say something?
I, I was so this was the first time I've seen this movie, and I'm guessing I need to see it a second time to get more out of it. I think there's a lot in there. But one thing that I wrote down in the beginning, when after they committed the murder, Philip and Brandon, or Brandon was telling Philip, or I don't know, they were saying, oh, that's right, they were having a drink afterwards, and I think it was Brandon that was saying, wait, let me see. Out of character. Oh, you're saying it's out of character for David to drink anything as corrupt as whiskey. And then Philip replied, out of character for him to be murdered too. And even before that, Brandon was saying, oh, I would think he'd be drinking ginger ale or beer, but not corrupt like whiskey. And so that leads me to, I mean, and then other than that, like they go on and on about how um, the power to kill can be just as satisfying as the power to create, and that charm is frightening, and that we've killed for the sake of danger and for the sake of killing. And then later on they go on and on about how, you know how we're saying right now, all of us, that those who are superior are allowed to kill those who are inferior. So what I'm putting together is, if David, who was killed, who would be the inferior, is isn't corrupt enough to drink whiskey, so I'm equating inferior with innocent. So is that what the point of the movie, or that's not the point of the movie, but that's one piece of it, that like those who are superior are actually the aggressors, where those who are inferior are the innocent. um I mean, another part that kind of points to that for me was when Brandon accused Janet for being with David because he's wealthier than Kenneth. I think it was. Was it Kenneth? Um, and then later on, we find out that Kenneth actually broke up with her, and the reason she ended up with David was because David was comforting to her after the breakup. So, here she is getting accused of being a gold digger when in fact it's that's not the case at all. And there was another part where Rupert said to, or gosh, what was it? Brandon or Rupert's like, oh, I've already heard of you, Janet. And Janet says, oh, well, did he speak highly of me, or did he do me justice? That's right. Did Brandon do me justice when he was speaking about me? And Rupert replies, do you deserve justice? I mean, like a lot of, I don't know, that I feel like that also is hinting at the same idea, that those who are perceived as, like it's perception, like she's being perceived as one way when in fact she's totally innocent. David, they both know he's like doesn't deserve this. They're straight doing this just to like enamor themselves, what it seems like, based on the fact of what this professor had taught them over time. But they must have started somewhere, and then the professor furthered along that thought, and here they are. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to it, but that's just my current thoughts.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna. Um, I was gonna the Yeah, Brandon is an example of, yeah, is just someone else said he's not a Superman. He's really a nihilist. Exactly the kind of person that Nietzsche was struggling to find an alternative to if traditional morality, Christian morality, was going to be set aside. What are you going to replace it with? If you don't replace it, you get Brandon. You get nihilism. You get nothing matters. You do whatever is enjoyable to you. Brandon seemed to uh, take tremendous pleasure in the idea of getting away with this murder. He was planning a perfect murder. He was just thrilled with the idea of what they were doing, because they were just they were going to beat the system, so to speak, and get away with it. Of course, Philip was not so confident, but Brandon was supremely confident. that nothing mattered. So what, just enjoy yourself. If this is fun, seeing if we can get away with it, let's do it. Uh, that so yeah, he's yeah. As far as the David status. David Wood, we don't know much about him because he was killed right at the beginning, but we gather that he was basically a nice guy. Uh, Janet liked him, but he was nothing. In Brandon's eyes, he was kind of a kind of what's the word? Nothing burger. I was wanted to say somebody who did. He was just ordinary, and he thought of himself as extraordinary. Brandon did, and anyway, it's interesting that isn't there a place where the Brandon and that there's some hint that Brandon had once been involved with Janet before in the past as well. Um, I think. Anyway,
Yeah, there was. Yeah, you're right. And I guess that was also part of like, oh, I can't, he said to her, I can't keep up with your love life. So he's kind of poking at her,
yeah,
calling her, like she gets around or whatever. Um, and then, I feel like, so I think, was it Mike that was saying earlier how we really didn't have any motive at all of why they killed David. There was no reason really at all. And so I feel like that also says a lot about the movie. It was a completely meritless, pointless murder, other than for them to feel like they're superior and that they're better than others. That was like the only reason. It seemed like to me at least.
Well, I
yeah,
think that was the reason. I guess I don't. I, I think they did have a reason, but it was just frivolous and inadequate. And a philosopher like Nietzsche would not have. I don't. Nietzsche was smart enough to, I think, to recognize that just killing somebody for oh the hell with it is pretty stupid. At least that's what I would think. But so there was a reason. It just wasn't a very good reason. It was just kind of a dumb reason.
yeah.
What was the reason then? I must have missed it. I'm confused.
They were
Well, I think it was to prove this whole theory that you could go around killing somebody inferior to you, and what the hell? Let's try it.
Okay, so
This
it's not like David actually did anything. They're literally picking someone basically at random that they think is
right.
superior.
I think you're right,
that's what I
Anna.
thought.
That's right, Anna. In fact, that's why they picked him because he was random and he was innocent and he did nothing wrong. That's exactly why they picked him. Then if he that had a more like self-defense reason, then that would make this more wouldn't be there wouldn't have been the same story at all. He was chosen precisely because he was not guilty of anything in particular. I wanted to mention, in case you're not aware, in it's there is the plot of the story is actually loosely based on a real story. By the way, there was a case of Leopold and Loeb. It's discussed in one of the articles that I put a link to. Leopold and Loeb, those were the last names of some a couple of guys in college kids, as a matter of fact, in around in the I forget what time, but in what time period, but it was before the movie was made. They made the news, national news, because they had essentially done exactly what Brandon and Philip did, and moreover, when they were brought to trial, they made references to a lot to Nietzsche, as a matter of fact. So these two characters, Brandon and Philip, are based on real life characters who really did do something like this. The details are somewhat made up. I don't know about Janet and all the rest of it, but the core idea of two guys, college kids, college young men, who killed an innocent person and then later tried to justify it by making references to philosophies like Nietzsche or something was actually really did happen. I don't know if you're aware of that, but
I think Barbara has her hand. I've got a little list of who's raised hands in order. It's Barbara, me, and then Olivia. But
okay.
yeah, but just a quick interjection that the, did you hear about the case in Idaho of this Wazoo graduate student that murdered four students? Just I kept thinking about that incident. There was no motive that I could see, other than he just looks like a psychopath. Did anybody else? Has anybody else heard of that case? I mean, it's similar to the one that Victor just mentioned. Of course, this guy's on trial. He hasn't published his motive, if there is one.
Yeah, I've heard of that one too. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The one where they like they he kills them in the middle of the night, and people are trying to figure out how he killed all four without them like without anyone doing it. I don't know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and but they fortunately got him with DNA. It sounds like.
Hmm. Oh,
But yeah, I mean, he seems to be following the general plot of the Rope movie to me. It, I mean, maybe he's been watching that. Anyway, I think Barbara is next.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I didn't think this had that much to do with Nietzsche, but Nietzsche is often misinterpreted. And so the movie seems to use it to set up something that doesn't really that would be titillating to the audience, really. And that made this was post World War II, was it? So you also had that fear around of this sort of creeping in, some kind of totally amoral thing creeping into society from who knows where. So, but it struck me more as closer to Crime and Punishment, because Raskolnikov doesn't he doesn't really have a motive for killing the woman. He has a kind of uh, a reason, and sometimes some people articulate in the movie that, and not in the movie, I'm sorry, in the book, that the woman that he kills, she'd be better off. The society would be better off without her because she's a money lender and she's predatory. So there is actually even a reason there for him to want to be rid of her. I think he owed her money too, but he wanted to see if he could, see what he was trying to test her position in society, I think, by killing her. But then, of course, gets involved in all sorts of other stuff since it's a long book. But this movie seemed, I don't want to say flimsy in its approach, but I think that movies a lot of times pander to people's uh, ideas at the time, and so it's interesting to me to think about what people might have taken from it, uh, because philosophically, I don't think it really holds up. But is it that education is pernicious? Is it that there's something creeping into the society that we don't understand and don't see, and before we know it, it'll get us, or what, or is it that some people don't count? And of course, the society is set up, especially the time the movie was made, on that idea that some people don't count, like minorities maybe. So that's an interesting question for me. Not so much the comparison between Nietzsche and the crime, even though it was mentioned a lot in the movie.
yeah. Thanks, Barbara. Is it Mike and then Olivia, then Ashby?
Yeah,
Okay.
a couple of comments. I thought Jimmy Stewart's character I thought was really interesting, and so Jimmy Stewart had two movie kind of careers. One was before World War II, and then the second one, which this was an example of, was post World War II. But he flew bombers in World War II, and went on numerous actual combat missions. He probably did kill people. So whenever I see him in his post, he doesn't seem quite as oh, I don't know, happy in the post World War. He seems like a little bit like he's seen the world a little bit more. If you look at the earlier movies, like I think with Cary Grant, he was different, at least to me. Anyway, but the reason I mention this is that I don't think actors can completely separate themselves from their roles. And so, Jimmy Stewart in the end, he did a really good acting job. of trying to get, because it occurred to him. He said, "Thank you." I think it was something like, "Thank you, Brandon. You have made clear, that I've been wrong all along. That it's one thing to armchair philosophize, but then to actually look at a dead body, it's quite a bit different." And so that juxtaposition, that, I mean, to me, when we reached that part of the movie, this was the whole point they were trying to make was that, yeah, okay, maybe you can sit in an armchair and talk about Nietzsche, and the superiority and all that kind of stuff. But when it really comes down to it, it just doesn't hold. Nietzsche does not always hold up in the real world, and if you take him too literally, you can get yourself into all kinds of problems like this. In my opinion, actually, everything's in my opinion. But another note about Brandon was that they did such a great job with him and his acting. He looks so well dressed and well manicured, and he's smoking his cigarette. And people usually don't smoke at parties anymore. So I've kind of forgotten all the poses that you can make with cigarettes at parties, and he's doing it all. And so on a probably now and then, he comes across for an elite press. It's kind of with the one hand, he presents himself fine, but he's so superficial and awful. It was a really interesting character. Anyway, I've gone on for a while. Thanks, everybody. I guess Olivia's next.
Yeah. Um, I was wondering as I was watching the film, and I was wondering if I missed anything, but I kept wondering, why did they choose David as the one they were going to murder? How much thought did they give to it beforehand? Did I miss something? I know he was a former classmate, and I guess he was sort of innocent and a nice guy. And in Brandon's eye, of course, an ordinary person. But I think in Brandon's eye, almost everybody at the party was below him, was more or less an ordinary person. But why did they choose David? Was it a spur of the moment thing that they decided to murder him? Or did they plan this for a while? I mean, did they choose David because he was there at their apartment, and David put his hat in the closet there, and that's what Rupert discovered when he opened the closet. He put on the wrong hat, and the hat had David's initials in it, and that was the big giveaway to me. But anyway, I just wondered, does anybody have any ideas, or did it reveal in the film why they chose David and how much thought they gave to this? Or was it something that they got the impression that they kind of decided it, very, very soon? Maybe they decided David was going to be it because there he was at their apartment and they were all alone, just the three of them.
Yeah. Well, actually, the before, yeah, briefly to response, they had planned this gathering, this party before they ever killed David, because this had been planned, apparent, apparently. So um, and well, if because David was connected prior with Janet, and Janet, so it had been Brandon, and basically three of the guys there had at some point had been connected with Janet. I don't think he was. I think there must have been some planning beforehand. And also Brandon wanted this to be outrageous to have the parents of the murder victim right there celebrating at a party while their dead son is in a box. The drama there is what uh, I think appealed greatly to Brandon, enhancing the drama. So I think all that went into choosing David. That was my thought. Ashby or
It's Erica. Yeah, I
Erica?
guess my name doesn't come fully out. So it's my first time here. Thanks everybody. I wanted to. One of the things that really stands out to me is like the contrast in I don't even want to say all the characters, but kind of the dynamic between them all, and that especially Jimmy Stewart as Rupert, really for me. But I think it kind of speaks to um, our humanity in a way that we're all kind of thinking and trying to figure out what the motive was and what was the motive, like why did they do this? Because there's literally almost no reason and very random. And I think that I'm very new to Nietzsche, um, philosophy in general, and obviously he's very complicated. And like Mike was saying, you can get kind of in trouble the more you try to kind of put it into motion. But what I mean by the contrast, I guess, is that or like the humanity of us thinking of that is that that's part of it. That's the opposite, right? Of or what Nietzsche kind of talks about to a certain degree is that once you remove that overall morality, then you get the nihilism where it's like nothing matters. And it's almost kind of like, oh, we're so elite, we've become bored, and now we need to do something. And the audacity of them to do this right up into a point of the party of where his parents are going to be there. Like this whole thing is like they're just like, we're just going to do this thing, and it's going to be like our little secret, and it's going to be how like we kind of, I don't know, get through our lives or whatever. It brings more meaning to us, makes us feel more powerful. And I feel like I've heard, or recently, I think it was in your um, links, Victor, that Rupert, Jimmy Stewart, was kind of like the Superman in a way, where um he kind of pokes at everybody. Even though he's the teacher of those two boys that killed them, he is the like he's the one that kind of put this thought, this seed into their minds. But then he's also the one that kind of, this is the contrast as well, as where he kind of like pokes at everybody, and they're kind of like little high horse that everybody is on. He kind of like gets to the, not to the root, but kind of like, just to almost like get a response or see what, like how convicted they are and what they're doing and thinking and feeling and being essentially. And I kind of like love that about Jimmy Stewart. And I again agree with Mike where he said it's kind of post World War II, and I didn't really put that connection together. But like even in It's a Wonderful Life, like he's got a little mean streak in him, and he whips out, like, he kind of pokes at people, and he kind of to play that role where he's, I don't know. Anywho, um I can go deep into that, I guess, and just ramble and ramble. But I think that the contrast in all the characters, and like almost like the not the nonsense, but the pointlessness is kind of, it's the thinker. It's not so much a let's figure it out and dissect it and understand it. It kind of just makes you think about those types of people in our lives, in our societies, and where we kind of stand.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Erica. James, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I agree that maybe Jimmy Stewart is more representative of Nietzsche's Superman because he's able to penetrate to the heart of the situation and understand what's really going on, and not be deceived by his own misperceptions or misinterpretations of the situation. That he's able to overcome those weaknesses within himself to be able to understand the real essence of what is happening and what's going on. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, James. Barbara? Barbara.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jimmy Stewart was an odd choice for this role because of his, lovable persona. But I think it was his second movie. He actually did play a murderer. It was called After the Thin Man, and I saw it on TV one time, a long time ago. And it was really good, and he really played it well. And it's interesting that since then, if he ever sort of veered towards the dark side, we always had to have him pull all the way back by the end of the movie. Not in this movie, the After the Thin Man, but in all the other ones. So it's possible that Mike has a point there. That Stewart was conscious not only of his image, but that he might have had some real feeling about how about good and evil. Can't put it past him.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Barbara. Yeah. I would, yeah, I just want to make a brief comment about the throughout the film. Brandon was taking pains actually to make the situation more increasingly more dramatic by having the parents there, having putting the body in that chest with all the food served on top of it. It was all like he was daring, he was pushing. He wanted to make this as outrageous as possible. That was his. He was having a lot of fun doing that. I mean, I think that was created a lot of the drama in the film. Like there was is that somebody else pointed out. I think in one of the links, there was a shot where the maid that was carrying the food away from the top of the chest back to the kitchen to the dining room, very slowly, like she was going to reveal the what was inside the chest. Anyway, that was an amazing scene. Anyway,
Yeah, I like that the camera just did not focus on the people that were talking, the little cocktail party. The camera just panned to the maid walking back and forth. You're thinking, oh my God, she's gonna open that case. But it doesn't happen right there. But it's great. Personally, I've always found Hitchcock's movies a little too far-fetched. There's always something in there to go, that's never going to happen. I'm telling myself. But in this case, I don't know. I thought it was it's just a good movie. It's my gut reaction. With that kind of camera work.
hmm
Um,
and also it took place entirely in one room. It was a stage play, basically. Everything was in the
that's
room.
what I thought. Yeah. Was it from a stage play somewhere?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure about who did the screenplay, but it was definitely set up as a stage. It could have been done on a
Yeah,
stage easily.
yeah.
Anna,
I noticed it got darker
yeah,
outside.
right, yeah. Anna,
Uh,
oh, you
yeah,
guys,
I was just going to quickly say, it's just, my gosh, how pompous does Brandon need to be to not only, you know, go through with something like that, but then on top of that, add insult to injury and have all these, people over, his own parents, his aunt, his girlfriend, or his fiance. Like, God, it's just like right, exactly as you're saying, Victoria, like just takes it over the top. And then as far as Rupert being the Superman, that's not something I thought of, but it makes good sense because he's the one that's kind of stepping out of the box, and he's kind of he's kind of not necessarily going against herd mentality intentionally, but he's like critical thinking kind of person. And yeah, in that respect, and it kind of speaks to that link that you posted, Victor, which I thought was really great, which talked about um, how stupidity is uh, worse than evil and all
oh
that.
yeah,
I thought
by
that was really.
the Bonhoeffer thing, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to say was to Barbara's point. Yeah, I think it's really relevant to question what was going on during that period of time and what are we communicating through this movie? Are we saying that, you know, I don't know, I had another thought. Like, I can't remember. Maybe if I remember, I'll mention it.
Yeah, I wonder if it also represents a certain kind of pathological, human beings that develop within a certain, uh, you know, um, social economic system, where they've reached the height of their power by way of by way of a system that exploits others and looks down on others, and they have this power to determine the life and death of other people. And you see it right now in our in our situation where the billionaires they can do anything they want. They can fire people from their jobs, destroy people's lives without impunity, right?
hmm
And they And so there's a kind of a pathology there of dehumanization of other beings because you're able to do it. You know, if you can do it, then why not? And you could do it with joy, not just not just because it's going to serve you economically, but you do it just because you can.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, James. Mike?
Yeah, I I'm going to argue that Rupert did not represent the Superman in the Nietzschean sense. I think Rupert is kind of a stand-in for a common person who happens to be, regarding this situation, in a rational light. And you can see as as the movie progresses, you can see him becoming progressively more suspicious. He starts out when you first see him, he already looks suspicious, but then as the movie progresses, he gets really, really suspicious. And at the end of the movie, I think he sees his error that at one point he was arguing. Well, he was kind of arguing for Nietzsche's, getting rid of morality and replacing it with something else, getting rid of conventional morality. But in the end of the movie, uh, Jimmy Stewart, Rupert, I mean, basically he's just saying thank you because you've cured me of this, misapprehension of reality. It's not going to be like Nietzsche, where you can just, for whatever reason, just murder somebody, especially without a cause. So I don't, I would I respect the opinion, but I would not regard Rupert as a Superman type character myself.
Anna? Anna?
Thanks. So this just made me think of just made me think of a question. In the movie, there was like little references to Rupert, like being interested in what's her name, Miss Wilson, the the person who was the yeah.
The,
And I'm trying to, and then even at one point, I think he said to Brandon, "I'm going to marry her" or something like that. And so I'm wondering what that was in reference to. I'm not quite sure. Curious.
I feel like it was because she was such a wholesome person and like she's like the most real person probably in the room, and he held that into like a level of respect.
Yeah, I just think it speaks to his character, I guess, to some extent. But
Absolutely.
if that's Superman mentality or not, or what, I don't know. Just a thought.
yeah. Well, yeah. Uh, yeah, as far as Rupert being a Superman, I think that article that I put up there, placed a link, suggested that he had traits of the Superman. I think that what he was referring to was his inquiry into his wanting to question everybody at the party and not taking anything at sort of face value. In that respect, yeah, there's some of Nietzschean traits there because Nietzsche was constantly questioning the way the society and the social norms and mores that it has in everyone. And so that in that sense, I do think that Rupert represents has Nietzschean traits or Superman traits, but I also see that what Mike's point that in a way, at the end, especially, I think he represents the common person's reaction to all of this. You know that this is outrageous, and if he did anything to to facilitate what this murder by teaching what he taught to these young men, then maybe in some sense he was in some sense culpable himself. Anyway, uh, so I see him as a mixed character. You know. Anyway, um, anybody else have any other thoughts about this?
I just want to say thank you to everybody. I do have to go, but I just really I like had fun, so thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, Erica. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right. Yeah. Any actually, Mike, you mentioned or somebody did. No, it was James. Um, yeah, mentioned about people who have lots of power and think they can do whatever they want to anyone else. Actually, that's going to be coming up in the next topic, the philosoph not the next movie topic, but philosophical topic, the one about uh, what was it the bodily fluid theory of property. I'm going to be pushing there in the end about characters like Elon Musk and the amounts of power that can be concentrated in one person and what the moral consequences of that can be and possibly might be. Anyway, that's going to be a future topic. Just wanted to mention that. Not that Elon Musk, to my knowledge, has ever quoted philosophy. Well, actually, he does have a philosophy, but it's not a Nietzschean philosophy. It's more something else, which I'll talk about that in the future.
That's next week, right?
Uh,
Next Sunday.
yeah, the one about the property. Yeah, it's yeah. Briefly,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I watched some of the highlights of that's the name of that movie is I forget uh, the bodily fluid movie. Um,
Oh, Kubrick's
what?
Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah, yeah, I watched some of that last night. It looked like it came right out of the Trump administration.
Yeah,
Um, it's it's just oh for okay. Well, I guess we'll leave that for next week. But yeah,
yeah.
um,
Well, next week we're having the philosophical discussion, which is about the issues that the more not the movie. Then later, I did put that movie as one of the movies we can discuss. There's a lot more in the movie than just that, but anyway, that's for the future. Anybody else have any?
But nobody's talked about the way the film was made. And I thought that was a really dominant feeling in the film was just how it was put together. I read a little bit about how it was put together. And in those days, I think each shot only had like 10 minutes worth and they had to change cameras, something like that. And as I was watching the film, I sort of felt like I was the camera. I was sort of floating around looking at the different people, and then what I really thought was interesting was the way the lighting was. You know, the way it got dark outside, and some of the lights from the city were shining onto the people in the party, the gathering, and it was all very atmospheric and very interesting. And the way everybody was so dressed up, and this is 1948, and these are very elite people, so that was the world they lived in. But the whole feeling with the way the camera moved, and at one time the camera moved and it was just like on the back of somebody, so the camera just goes black, the screen just goes black for about 1 or 2 seconds, and then it moves and shows the people again. And I really liked that feeling. It made me feel like um, I was there, but the camera almost felt like a character in the film, instead of something that you would forget about, you know. So I really liked that. I think I even liked the flaws in the film
Mm,
because of that. It gave it a real strong flavor.
mm.
I,
You
I've
mean
got something.
go ahead.
Just oh well, along those lines, I did notice that I mean in the beginning of the film, there's this perspective from outside the apartment. You know, it's like it's the public looking in, and then we go into the apartment, and then of course the movie progresses. But then at the end of the movie, uh, Rupert cracks open the window and starts shooting that gun, and then you hear a reaction from people outside, and that's basically the end of the movie. So it's kind of tied together. At the first part of the movie, you got the outside perspective, and at the end of the movie, you've got the outside perspective from people, and it's kind of like the same technique they used in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where at the beginning there's this you see this ordinary couple walking away from a party and everything looks normal, and then all hell breaks loose. The next day, they're back to kind of normal. So there's kind of this transition you see from here's normal life, here's your perspective, here's this crazy stuff going on, and then here's back to your reality. Kind of like here we're taking you on this little voyage.
Yeah,
Yes, I thought that I noticed that technique.
yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, yeah. The I think another reason for a film like this, for why they did it this way, as like a play and all happening more or less in one room, except they briefly stepped into the hallway or something. But most of the play is in that one big room, the dining room or living room, whatever it was. It because the topic was about ideas and morality and human relationships. It was very focused on this, like a living room, a place where you have this kind of discussion. Didn't need to have too many outside distractions involved, because it was very much an inside uh, um, dialogue, film about dialogue.
Yeah, I actually really like that about the movie, and it just I've watched older movies, but not as many as I'd like to have. But I feel like having it all in one room and like play like that allowed for the character development, to for us to really kind of really get a sense of who these people are. I mean, all of them really, from the aunt to the dad to, I mean, and Philip. I mean, Philip also, his character was pretty complex too, because he was really under Brandon's thumb, like, so everyone else is just basically charmed by Brandon. They don't really, other than Rupert, for the most part. And then Philip, I felt like just felt threatened by Brandon. And I didn't even realize. I guess they're brothers. I didn't realize that till later. Are they brothers though or not? I don't know.
No,
I think they're supposed to be gay.
yeah,
They're
according to
supposed to be a gay couple.
yeah, that's another subtext in the film. They couldn't talk about homosexuality in the night that period of time, but that's what there are lots of commentaries out there that suggest that yeah, they were gay, or at least their suggestion was they were a gay couple.
Oh, that
That's
totally changes the scope, because I thought, didn't Brandon say that he dated Janet?
Yeah, he did in the past. Maybe it was bisexual, but those terms didn't exist in 1948. But they could.
I think I think that guy, the guy that acted Brandon's character was gay in real life. I read that somewhere, but so maybe that's how this got started. But I didn't see any, overly. I mean, they could just be taken for heterosexual friends. I
Yeah,
think I didn't see anything.
yeah, it wasn't in your face or anything. They couldn't have talked about that in 1948. I don't think. But
No.
but other people suggest there were like these little overtones here and there. Suggest they were obviously roommates in this apartment. But one of the commentators said that they referred to the bedroom as if there was only one bedroom in the apartment. The real subtle things like that.
Oh, I missed that. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but
I,
yeah,
I was wondering how were they planning to get rid of the body?
yeah, they
You know,
mentioned.
I mean, like carry it down the back stairs at night before they go off somewhere. I mean,
Well, they did talk about they were going to take a trip the next day to the country or something. But yeah, how they were going to get it out of the apartment, I'm not sure what their plan is.
I mean, that would be the hardest thing of all, it would seem to me. And what, then put it in their car
Yeah,
in New York City?
Yeah, they said it was going to be at the bottom of the lake or something at
yeah,
some point. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know how they were planning to get it down. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's what
seems
I
like in
wondered.
these movies, it seems like in these movies they usually pretend like they're transporting a rug, so they put the guy inside the rug. It seems like they're always doing that. And there's usually a group of guys playing cards at the same time. But anyway, that's something.
yeah. All right. Well, anybody have any final comments, or we can close it off right now. Yeah,
I thought it was a great film. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, like I said, I hadn't seen it for a long time, but
Yeah.
it was really well done.
Yeah,
Good suggestion.
I had seen it in the past, but again a while ago. But yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
I enjoyed it too. Thank you for the selection. And I also kind of like that it wasn't super long. I feel like oftentimes movies are like 2.5 hours. I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh. So I appreciated that it was, hour and 20 minutes felt good. And the movie, it was a good movie. It was and it's always fun watching like older movies with the way they're dressed,
Yeah,
the cigarette smoking and the drinking. I don't know, has a
yeah,
speakeasy cool way about it.
And you also
yeah,
have to pay attention in a Hitchcock film. You have to pay attention to everything that happens. Every move, every word
Yeah,
contributes to the plot, you know?
yeah.
isn't he supposed to be? He's supposed to be. Doesn't he always show up in every movie? But I don't think he made it into this one, unless he was one of the people shouting outside.
no,
I
yeah,
don't think.
or maybe no. I don't think I didn't see him anywhere in there. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's definitely the kind of movie that one can watch multiple times and get something more out of it every time, I think.
yeah. Also, those of you, I should have said this earlier, but those of you here that, if you, I'm just picking films that I know about, but if some of you have want to make suggestions, preferably a film that is somehow available online so people can watch it without necessarily having to buy it or access to it. But I'm open to suggestions. I think Mike is going to do or suggested Apocalypse Now next month,
Yeah,
right?
it's coming up right around tax day, and or a couple of days before that. And actually, I don't think apart from that super long version um, that's on archive. I don't know that there's probably not a public domain version, so I'm not exactly sure how to recommend watching it. You might have, they might. I mean, I guess we could have like a watch party where I can, we could stream it over Meet or something like. But I don't know, or maybe just pay a couple of bucks to get it on Netflix. Or a lot of people have already seen it
Yeah, I've
anyway,
seen it.
or just read Heart of Darkness
Uh,
too. That maybe that's a backup option because they're very well. I mean, the core of the ethics, morality, and the development is the same. It's just there's a lot of bells and whistles added into the movie, of course. But that cut that you found is so long. I mean, it really taxes the viewer.
yeah, I haven't even watched
I
that
one
cut.
thing
I watched
one thing I was thinking of was I could kind of delineate, where in that long version you should watch, to get the effect of the regular movie. That was an idea.
okay. Yeah, I don't mind watching long movies. I'll just watch it over a period of you know maybe several sessions if it's that long. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to encourage people to make suggestions of their own if they have some ideas for movies that would provoke discussion, philosophical discussion of some sort. That's I'm always open to that. But yeah,
There was a movie. Have you guys seen Anatomy of a Fall? I just saw that recently, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, about Does that ring a bell at all? No.
is it a recent film or when did
It's
it?
some yeah, it's somewhat recent. I think within the last like 3 or 4 years or so. And it's about a woman, a man who dies, a husband who dies, and the woman gets accused of it, and then it kind of dives into the psychology and the backdrop of their relationship, and then the son and how the son factors in. It's a very there's a lot of emotions and moving parts to it. I don't know. It's definitely not one of these like cool older movies, but that one it was pretty good too, I thought.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah,
I mean, there's so many good ones. That's just the one. That's one I just saw recently, so
yeah,
that's why I mentioned
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I can think of a lot of good movies too. In fact, I have a huge list. So we got enough. I'm sure other people will provide more as we go along. Um, for the most part, I've been trying to make them easy for people to access without having to buy anything. So to make sure that everybody who wants to and has seen it before, or had an opportunity to see it before. Um, um, so I'm always looking for like versions that are available somehow on the internet, or that I can make copies of, perhaps uh, illegally, but share them with with the group, the small group here. Um,
Yeah, and Canopy's a good tool too. Canopy,
yeah,
sometimes they have
yeah,
these on there.
yeah. So yeah, if somebody has any ideas, let me know. If it, we'll certainly open to that. So
Anna, Anna, did you say when Anatomy of a Fall was made?
Oh gosh, I just saw it on a Canopy. I'd have to look it
I
up.
mean, is it like 10 years old,
Oh
20
no,
years
no, I
old?
think it's like less than 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But does this group usually watch older movies? Is that
no, well, that's no, mainly because you can find them online freely. But no, that isn't. There's no rule about that. About
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's 2023 and yeah, it was on Canopy, so that's why I watched it. Um yeah.
mm. If you find a a link to, like for example, this movie, and you can share it with us, let us know. Maybe we can schedule that. Yeah, Citizen Kane is another option. I could think of many. All right.
Yeah, there's so many. That's a good one too, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Victor, the recording is going to show up in the usual directory. It takes a half an hour or so, but
Okay. All right. All
Oh,
right.
is this oh, it's recorded and then where is it shared out of
I
curiosity?
well, sometimes we put it up on the in the comments of the description of the on Meetup, a link to it, and sometimes it's also on our. Depend if I put it there. We actually have a YouTube channel where we put up recordings. I haven't recorded every single session we have, but many of them are up there. You can let's see, where can I put? There is a. If you go into the about page of the meetup description that describes what the club is about, at the very bottom, I think there's a link to the YouTube channel where we normally put up recordings of our events. But they can also be posted right in the comments to this topic as soon as they're available.
But Victor,
I posted the link to the archive of meetings this year.
Yeah.
So we just started. So there's other crap in here too, but mostly they're all in the same directory. In addition to Victor's YouTube stuff.
but Victor, you haven't recorded any of the other film meetups, have you?
I haven't. I certainly haven't recorded most of them. Maybe I'm recording this one, but
Yeah,
so is
this
Mike.
might be the only one.
Yeah. But so is Mike. We actually have two recordings. The one that Mike's using, and I'm experimenting with recording offline, I mean directly on my computer hard drive to see how that works. So that I can I have more flexibility about editing out stuff in the film, in the recording. Because sometimes people say to me, that they don't want to be recorded or put up. Uh, so they people have asked me to block them the recording of the voice, but I don't think that it's a problem with the movie discussions. It might be a problem with some of the more controversial topics we've dealt with in the past, though. Some people have mentioned that I don't want to be recorded anyway. But yeah, if
Every
we're
once in a while, somebody says something regrettable.
yeah, or
Everybody eventually.
they may want me to censor it or cut it out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, and then the
yeah,
purpose is just like people can
regular.
go on there
Yeah.
and listen to a movie analysis kind of thing or just a
yeah.
discussion.
Well, it's primarily I whatever it is publicly available on YouTube, so anybody in theory could find it. But I don't like publicize it or anything. It's mainly for the benefit of other club members who couldn't make it, who wanted to hear what we talked about. That's the reason I record them. That's the main purpose. I don't know that very many other people watch it. If they could in theory find it, but I don't promote it or do anything, any effort to get it out there. It's
No,
primarily,
it doesn't show up in social media or anything like that.
no,
Yeah,
it's not going to
just
be,
if you want to, yeah.
no, it's pretty, I think most people, unless you are part of the club and or would find them boring. But
Yeah.
anyway, we'll see.
Sometimes it pays off to some of the more difficult topics to go back and
Yeah,
you know, I'm a little too overconfident. Sometimes when I review things, I think I completely missed that.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Good.
Uh, All right.
I guess so.
Thank you.
See
Great.
you next week.
Yeah,
Thanks everybody.
Great
Very
fun. Thanks
interesting.
so much. Thanks everyone.
yeah, thank you all. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.